Now, as I'm exploring both the dark sides and the potential sides of Aikido, especially with the likes of the video of Aikido versus MMA that I did, the more flaws that are coming up, the more people are telling me just to ditch Aikido, just to leave it be, just to leave it behind, go to a different martial art which is already developed and has a good reputation, which leads to a certain question. So should Aikido die? And personally, I would say no. I think Aikido has a lot of value to offer to the table. It has a lot of unique qualities. The problem is it has a lot of problems too, but those problems are not unsolvable. Those solutions exist, but instead of just letting Aikido die, I think we should allow it to die in a certain way, but then in order for it to be reborn anew. And let me explain by what I mean by that. Not to say that the Aikido, the way it's practiced right now, is entirely bad. It has a lot of flaws, a lot of issues, but I think if some people are inspired to keep it the way it is, let's call it classical Aikido. Let's give those people the power to preserve it the way it is. But I would say don't try to make up for it and pretend that that it works for a modern contemporary person. Just make it clear that we are trying to preserve it. We're practicing classical Aikido the same way it was practiced 60 years ago, and that's the deal. But then also be honest about the issues. What I am personally though excited and interested in is how would Aikido look in the modern world if we allow it to adapt, if we allow it to change? How would Aikido look if we would adapt it to suit the needs of a contemporary person? Now, the issue which arises here is that Aikido was developed in a time where the empirical perspective was not as powerful. These days, we're so exposed to a lot of information. There's so many YouTube videos, so many classes, they're just on the other side of the street, that it's easy to see the flaws of Aikido very quickly. In the past, mysticism, supernatural powers, and all the martial techniques which weren't fully sound, they weren't questioned as much because people didn't have anything to compare it with. Now times are different, and I think we should address that in a different way rather than just expect people to believe what they believed 60 years ago. Now, not to say that the empirical approach is not lacking these days, there's still a lot of brainwashed people who believe the things they're told without questioning, without really practically testing it out. But realism is getting it to us much quicker and quicker, and that's why Aikido is suffering, because what it claims to do and what it does is different, and more people are able to see that. Not everyone, but the majority are, and I think that's one of the issues that Aikido is facing. Now, one of the strengths of Aikido is its philosophy. A lot of people are going to Aikido specifically because it has something that other martial arts are not offering as much. It has a very strong philosophical or lifestyle aspect. But the problem is even that side of Aikido is poorly delivered. While the founder was very inspired about his philosophy, a lot of his students didn't really address that so much, and even people who did, a lot of times they make it theoretical and they don't really apply it to the modern person's standards. So for example, how does that relate to psychology? How does that relate to the skills alike, like body language, like neuro-linguistic programming? The self-development aspect in Aikido is also lacking. The problem is that a lot of people are inspired about it, but they keep on training very dry Aikido, just doing techniques, and they're told that 40 years later, after you practice, you'll just become enlightened in some supernatural, unpredictable way. Or it happens with most people, they train Aikido, and eventually, if they want to get to know about philosophy, they are told to read a book about it. Or the other school is not what I'm really supporting myself either. It's schools which talk a lot about philosophy, but they lack any ability to really train efficiently. So those two issues are also not really addressed and not really evolved up to today's standards. So now, to sum up my point, a lot of people are interested and inspired about Aikido's message, about Aikido's philosophy, but the problem is Aikido is too much in the past. Aikido is not allowing itself to develop and to bring that message to the modern standards, and also it has too many questionable aspects about its promises of martial prowess. And if we don't change anything, if we don't do anything, then Aikido will die its natural death and it won't be reborn unless we do something about it. Also, we have to address and look at people who would maybe benefit from Aikido, but they don't even go and practice it because it has a very bad reputation in many martial arts societies. It's questionable from the beginning, and people come and they don't get what they're expecting, or they don't see what they want in Aikido and they don't even start training it, and that's a big issue too. So now, how to make it efficient, how to make it adapted to contemporary people. I have a lot of ideas, I have a lot of strategies, a lot of plans. One of them is covered in the previous episode on how to make Aikido effective. You can click on the I letter there in the corner and check it out. I'll also talk about the self-development aspect. I have a whole plan and strategy how to bring it to the contemporary person, that it would make sense, that it would be pragmatic, that the Aikido principles could be really trained on the mat, that they would later come across in your daily life. But this video is too short for me to cover that. I'll cover that in other serious parts. But right now, I just want you to look at your Aikido and to consider whether you want to make it classical, whether you want to preserve it, but then face its flaws honestly and be open about it and keep it that way, or whether you want to be part of the change, whether you want to help Aikido evolve and bring its message and prove us to the modern standard. The very last thing, but not least, if you feel the power of this message, if you feel inspired about what I'm talking about and you want to support this, you want to make this change happen, I invite you to check my Patreon page, which you will find here. Either the button is already there or it's going to be there very fast. Click there and you will see a whole offer on how you can support this project financially, also get some rewards about it. So I'll just let you click there and I'll let you check it. But besides that, as always, I'm looking forward to hear your comments, and I'm looking forward to continue the subject in the next video.